Welcome, everyone. We have a few more people trickling in, so I'm just going to do a quick intro, get the ball rolling while people, little Zoom boxes, all jump in. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. We have a phenomenal event to kick off this Sunday afternoon. So I'll start. My name is Maggie Strews. For those of you that don't know me, I'm the Assistant Director of Compliance here at DePaul. I also sit on our DEI Education and Training Subcommittee, along with Ben and Steph and Kayla and Belle as well, Ingram. And so thank you first and foremost to Steph and Ben for organizing and getting this on the calendar for everybody. Thank you guys all for being here. Thank you to our moderators and our panelists for sharing your time with the world and your experience and your stories and your words. So just a quick reminder, if you guys can all mute your microphones as you're getting on. We're going to go through our event, and then around about 4 o'clock, we're going to do a live Q&A. So you can either, as an audience member, unmute yourself and ask your question. You can send questions in the chat to me privately if you want, or to the full group, and our panelists will take it over. But yeah, we hope everyone has an amazing time. Thank you again so much to our panelists, our moderators, and for being a part of the conversation. For those of you on the call listening, thank you for, being here, being an ally, being supporting women of color in sports and individuals in general. So we're so pumped for this event. And I'll kick it off and let our panelists do a quick intro. So I'll start with Jennifer Williams.
Thank you so much, Maggie, and good afternoon, everyone. It is an honor to be able to come back and talk to a place that holds a really special place in my heart. And I'm Jennifer Williams, as Maggie stated. I'm the athletic director here at Alabama State University. I've been in this position for 2 years now, been in college athletics for 15 years. I was a student athlete. I played basketball, where I was a captain for 2 years at the University of North Carolina. So for those of the student athletes out there, I've been in your shoes a long, long time ago, and am now serving as an administrator and a woman of color in a role that is traditionally held by men. So looking forward to a great conversation with you all, and just know that this is a safe space. When we get to the Q&A, please feel free to ask whatever is on your mind. We're going to be transparent as panelists, and we just are here to share. So I don't know who to kick it to, or Maggie, you can kick it to someone.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. We'll go next to Coach Townsend.
Hey everybody, it's Coach Stephanie Townsend here, assistant coach with track and field. Shout out to my team. But I've been born and raised west side of Chicago, okay? And I came to DePaul as a Blue Demon myself back in 2005. And I'm not about to let you all know my age, but this is my 12th year as a coach after spending 4 years as an. And I am just super duper excited to be here today and to have this event. And again, like Jennifer said, just being transparent, having those tough conversations, and just here to share so everyone can learn.
Thank you so much, Coach Townsend. Coach Blankson, kick it off to you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Candace Blankson. Currently, I am the assistant women's basketball coach at DePaul. Pretty much grew up in a little rough part of Chicago as a youngster, and then my parents picked up and moved to the suburbs of Chicago, and went to Hillcrest High School. Actually played basketball at DePaul for Coach Bruno, who, upon walking across the stage at graduation, handed me my first job. And I was being an assistant coach, and they called me a lifer, haven't left. So I've been here in this position as an assistant coach for 20 years.
Thank you so much, Madam Blankson. Andrea Clark, kick it over to you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Andrea Clark. I am the administrative assistant for athletic development. I was born and raised here on the south side of Chicago. I went to the University of Missouri, where I majored in business administration with an emphasis in management. I grew up an athlete from the age of 4. I was also a dancer since the age of 4. So I did not play in college. I tore my ACL early on, like when I was 13. So that kind of knocked things off for me. However, I've been here at DePaul for like 4 years, a little over 4 years. I just graduated from grad school here last June, where I majored in accounting. So my current role, I'm the support staff for the Senior Associate Director of Athletic Development here. So we work with donors and the alumni to fundraise for the athletic department and the teams.
Thank you so much. And last but not least, America's favorite, India Steward.
Hey guys, so my name is India. I am an athletic academic advisor here at DePaul. I'm currently pursuing my PhD in curriculum studies, and I've been an advisor here for 3 years now. I graduated with my master's in sport, fitness, and recreation from DePaul, and I got my bachelor's in sports administration from Ball State. So when I was an undergrad, I had the pleasure of being one of the only Black girls on the softball team. So that's why I'm glad to be able to be here and kind of just talk about my personal experiences. We were able to earn a MAC title, compete in regionals. So I know exactly what you guys are trying to do. I understand what it feels like to be a student athlete. And I know what it's like to be that token Black girl too. Lastly, I would just say I definitely have a passion for education, and I definitely want to try to implement social justice. That's my goal right now. So I'm really excited, and I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say.
Thank you so much. Before I kick it over to the moderators, for everybody that just jumped on and joined us, we seem to have a triple of the attendance when I first gave this intro, but you are free to ask questions in the chat, private message me your questions, or unmute yourself around 4 o'clock. We'll introduce that we're doing our Q&A portion, so you can ask our panelists anything. Right now, I'll leave it to the moderators to do their quick intros and ask their first question.
All right, hi guys, I am the first moderator. My name is Isabel Ingram. I am on the track and field team, and I am also a part of the DEI committee education subcommittee, and I am so excited to be here. I've actually been working on it kind of behind the scenes, and now I get to moderate it, so super excited.
Hi everyone, I'm also a moderator. My name is Kayla Cottle. I'm on the women's basketball team at DePaul. I'm also involved in DEI, and I'm really excited for this opportunity to be talking to these amazing, beautiful, successful Black women. So I'm just so excited and pumped. And Belle will start y'all off with the first question.
Yes, diving right in, our first question is, what made you want to be a part of this event? Coach Townsend, I have to call you Coach Townsend. We will start off with you as a member of the DEI committee and education committee and who created this. What made you create this event?
Well, just for today, Belle, I'll let you call me Stephanie today, okay? But before I even answer that question, I definitely want to thank, again, everyone for being here, and really thank our administration for the support behind this event, because you don't always get that everywhere. But in terms of actually creating this event, I really wanted to give the student athletes something that I didn't have, and that was representation, you know, representation and access to individuals in administration and coaching and academia that look like me. And it's just really, really big to have that access, to have that transparency, because as you look to have careers and your inspiration, what better way to have someone that look like you to help guide you and help inspire you. And also, this is just a really important time right now, very important time right now with the conversation, the current narrative of all that's going on in the world. And these are conversations that we need to have. So I figure, why not? It's all about educating, and that's what we're here to do. So that's what I will leave you all with.
Awesome. And Jennifer, you're now at Alabama State University, and you're working, you were working in development when you were here at DePaul. What made you come back and be a part of this event?
Well, Belle, similar to what Stephanie said, I'm really big on relationships. And as I alluded to when we first started, DePaul is very special to me. It was actually the first full-time job in college athletics that I had. And I was blessed to meet people, student athletes at the time, like Stephanie. I'm not going to age myself, but I was a younger administrator, but I was able to meet Stephanie. And I was able to work with women. You know, at the time, Jeannie was the athletic director, and you did not see a lot of females as athletic directors. And that was something when I was looking at places I wanted to work 4, that was it. And then my boss at the time, before it was the cool thing to be about diversity, equity, and inclusion, he was really big on it. He hired myself, a Black female. We had Lamone Lampley, who was a Black male who was a former student athlete. So we were a pretty diverse development team at the time. So I wanted to come back and share because, again, I'm big on representation, and it matters. And women of color need to see women in roles where they're leading, where they're managing, where they're coaching. And I feel like this is a topic we have to talk more about, the challenges, because we do have challenges that we face that are unique to our male counterparts. So when Stephanie called me a month and a half ago, I could sense the excitement in her voice, and I told her I was on board. Just get me the details, I would be there. So thank you, Stephanie, for reaching out.
Thank you for being here.
Awesome. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I know that's a conversation a lot of us have today, that we need more representation. And so that's why we're so excited to be a part of this and to be able to put on a panel like this. I'm going to open it up to the rest of the panelists if anyone else would like to chime in.
I'll chime in. I think it was shout out to Steph for creating this event, but I think it's a great starting point to just begin conversations, and hopefully, this happens more than one time a year. And it also just gives us, us on the panel an opportunity to discuss topics and issues, and to basically discuss them with, the student athletes that we walk past every day, that see us every day, that don't normally interact with us every day or speak to us every day. So it gives, us a chance to kind of speak and reach out to them. And then they can also, I don't know how many of them know who most of us are up here, but they see us every day. So I think it's a great opportunity for the panelists and also for the student athletes on the call.
I'll go. I would say what made me want to be a part of this event is definitely Stephanie. Thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate that. One reason I would say I'm really happy to be here is because I'm always trying to figure out what we can do to help the next generation. So even if I don't think I can fix the problem that's going on right now, because it's hard for us to be able to sit up here and tell our truth. It's real easy for us to be seen as angry Black women or, whatever stereotype you might have heard before. So I really hope that this conversation could just allow for our kids to be able to be more open and more welcoming to all types of cultures and just all types of people.
Yes, and speaking of that, I would like to dive into the next question. I know we've been dealing with a lot nationally and globally right now, and my question is, how has the Black Lives Matter movement and cases like George Floyd and influenced your desire to create more awareness on campus and abroad in your personal lives? And I'd like to ask this question first to Jennifer, because you're at a historically Black college in the heart of where the civil rights movement began. And I would, just let me know your thoughts on the Black Lives Matter movement and how you as an administrator and your coaches and student athletes have handled that.
Yeah, absolutely, Bill. So, being at a historically Black college at HBCU, people tend to think that we only have Black students or Black student athletes and coaches. And honestly, I have a very, very diverse group of student athletes that I'm responsible for, as well as coaches. So when everything happened with the Black Lives Matter movement and George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and so many others, it really forced a lot of hard conversations. And, for me, it was twofold. I have my Black student athletes who are visibly upset, shaken, just they're frustrated. They want change. And you have the pandemic going on as well. So that's another layer. But then I have my non-Black student athletes, which is a pretty good part of my department, and coaches who they don't understand. And they are being attacked by our general student population because, again, athletics is the most visible. We're the front porch. And so everyone sees athletics. And so they see our non-Black student athletes who they feel should be saying more and doing more to support the Black student athletes in there, but they just don't know what to say. So educating, we took that time to really educate our student athletes on why people felt certain ways. And then talking through some of the stereotypes or some of the situations that their Black teammates experience. And then talking to my non-Black student athletes about what they experience being at a historically Black college. That's just, it's different. So it allowed for us to have some really great dialogue. And I think a lot of time it's about educating. When we went into shutdown, because we did shut down our campus, and I have student athletes from all across the country, and there were protests happening. And, I encouraged our student athletes to use their platform, but to use it wisely. I don't think that we can tell our student athletes to not speak up on matters that's important to them, but at the same time, they have to understand that people are watching them. They're leaders, whether they want to be it or not. And so how you deliver on Twitter, what you put out there on Twitter, and where you go to protest is important. So that was something I talked to them about. Hey, I support you doing it, but be safe, be smart, and to protest in a nonviolent manner. So that was, we had a lot of support. We talked through the situations. I immediately got in contact with my coaches to talk to them, because some of them were hurting. And as a Black female, I was hurting as well, because it's hard to witness your people, violated. And so talking through that pain and being transparent with our coaches and opening up safe spaces for them, that was important as well, because I think sometimes our coaches, they get left out of the conversation because we're so focused on our student athletes. But our student athletes have to understand that their coaches were dealing with things as well, and they needed that time to talk it through. But that's kind of, it forced us to have great dialogue, Bill. And I think anytime you can get different people around the table to talk things through, it's always going to be some positives that come out of it.
Awesome, thank you. Drea, would you like to go next?
Sure. So the Black Lives Matter in the George Floyd situation, overall, it's definitely changed like our work environment. There's definitely more conversations being had, the tough conversations that need to be had. But as far as the people who I work with daily, my bosses, these were already conversations. Like, we had conversations about race and if there were microaggressions. Like, it wasn't, my current boss is actually Jennifer's old boss. And like she said, he's always been, an ally and an advocate for equality, and just, making sure that I feel valued, and, letting me know that. So we also work with another part of the university, advancement. And in the beginning, the George Floyd situation did spark conversations there like this. We had like a Zoom meeting, but they kind of trickled off. So I do appreciate athletics and Steph and the DEI committee for even having an event like this, so that we can continue these conversations, because they can't just be, when it's cool. They have to happen regularly. We just have to continue to learn from each other's experiences.
Thank you, Drea. And like you said, I think that's so important that these student athletes right now, like listening to this, are able to hear this conversation, that, want to be coaches, administrators, doctors, etc. in the future. And a question that I have, can you guys talk about the kind of discrimination that you've faced personally while being on the path where you are today? And how have you overcome these obstacles? Because we know that discrimination comes in all shapes and sizes, like race, gender, etc. And, I'll open this question to anyone who wants to answer, because I'm sure, you all have faced some sort of discrimination. So
I can go first. I shared this story with our group. We had a meet and greet a couple weeks ago, but I shared this story with them. And of course, this is something that's always stuck with me. My first job out of college, I moved to Los Angeles. It was my first full-time job ever. And I had a boss. Me and my boss were pretty close in age, but we had our regional VP, who was a white man, coming to visit our branch the next day. And my boss, who was a Hispanic man, pulled me into his office and basically, long story short, suggested that I straighten my hair because our VP was coming tomorrow. And me and him had a really cool relationship. I considered him a friend. So I was just really like taken back that he even said that to me, especially because he's a minority himself. So you would think that, oh, you know what we go through, but he doesn't. One, he's a male and he's not a Black male. So there's all types of different experiences that I've had or things that I know that he doesn't know. So I took that moment, instead of getting upset and like going to HR and like trying to, blow up the whole spot, I just took it as a teaching moment for him and a teaching moment for me, like to just let him know like that's not okay. You can't tell me to straighten my hair especially because a white man is coming to see our branch tomorrow. What does that have to do with anything? That's not going to stop me from doing my job and being the employee that I've always been. And I told him that's super offensive. And if I was any other Black woman who was not, didn't have that relationship with him, he probably would be in a lot of trouble with his bosses from saying that kind of thing to me. So he still to this day, to me, I don't think he really grasped it. The next day, I didn't come with my hair straightened, and he like nudged me and was like, I thought I told you to straighten your hair. And, he told me, I asked him why he felt that I needed to straighten my hair. And he told me that, he said, how many CEOs do you know with big hair? And I was just like, okay, like these aren't even microaggressions. And I'm pretty sure he felt comfortable with me. So he thought that it was okay for him to speak like that, but it's not okay. So it's just situations like that that stuck with me. That was my first job out of college. So I'm like, is this what I'm going to be dealing with? But fortunately, I've never felt like that at DePaul. It's always been a welcoming family environment. And I feel like if I hadn't experienced that boss, I would not have as much as appreciation for my boss and my colleagues that I have now that do treat me and value me far beyond my looks.
I'll hop in. And I was going to say kudos for you, Drea, for speaking up, because I think a lot of times as Black women, we or women of color, we let a lot of things slide where people need to be called out on. And, people having blind ignorance, they need to be educated. And I want to applaud you for doing that, because maybe he didn't get it with you, but the next time he'll think twice before telling someone to straighten their hair or not to wear braids or whatever. So some of my stories, and it's kind of along Drea, what she talked about. You don't think that it could come from someone who looks like you, but I think that people just sometimes just are, they're ignorant. And I started off in development, and shout out to Thad. I see him on the one of the little boxes here. And I had a lot of people tell me at the time that as a Black female that you're not going to be successful working in development, that you need to look at working in compliance or academics or something more on the internal side of athletics. And I knew from start when I came into this business after I left television that I was going to be an athletic director, and that being an athletic director, I was going to work on the external side. So marketing, fundraising, alumni engagement. And so actually was working at Women Leaders in Sport, which is in Wilmington, North Carolina, nonprofit, was volunteering at UNCW on the side. And a gentleman there, Black male, he sat me down and just said that you may need to look at going into a different side because they don't hire female African-American fundraisers. You're just not going to do it. And my thing that just inspired me to prove him wrong. That's just how I am. Anytime someone tells me I can't do something, they told me I couldn't be an athletic director by 40. I made it with some years to spare. And so, I think you have to use that to fuel your fire. And that's something that I've always been motivated by people telling me what I cannot do. I use that to go and do it and prove them wrong. But then looking at it from just people discriminating, just being a female in general, regardless of race. Working in athletics is hard. It's challenging in itself, but I feel like there we as women are perceived differently. I know, for example, I was called in when I was serving as deputy athletic director. Our chief of staff was saying how, people have said my tone, or because I'm a direct person. I'm about getting down to the job, let's figure it out. I'm very direct. And I feel as if I was a man, it would have been perceived as having great leadership qualities, knowing what you want. But as a woman, I came off as being the B word. Should just put it out there. And so, we talk about how you change your tone, and keep in mind, I'm in the Deep South. So you don't see women in general, regardless of race, in a lot of leadership roles. And so knowing how to be able to communicate effectively while still, showing that you're not playing or that you're assertive, that has been something I've had to learn, because I'm from Detroit. And, Detroiters, we're like a lot of Chicagoans. We say what's on our mind and we keep it moving. And in the Deep South, it's different. So learning how to adapt to your environment, but still keep your authenticity of who you are. That is something that I think has been key in me, learning as becoming an AD in a leadership role in a place where they don't see a lot of women and women of color in those roles.
Thank you so much for hitting on that. I mean, a lot of times I struggle with being direct too and coming off as the mad Black woman, or I feel like a lot of times after I speak, I lose respect because of the way I present myself. Even though I'm coming from a good place, it's automatically cut off. And so I guess I'm taking away it's a give and take, because I don't want to change for other people. I'm coming from a good place. I want to be heard as a Black woman, but as a woman and as a coworker. And so, I think that was really important for us to hear, that we can still.
And Bill, I definitely want to say that it's a thin line that you have to kind of straddle. But at the end of the day, if you know that you're coming from a good place, I tell people I go to bed I sleep well at night, because I know that I always come from a great space and that I lead with the student athlete at the forefront of everything I do. And so if I'm going to be passionate about it, because again, people are going to talk one way or the other, I know that I'm coming from a good space. So never change who you are. That's what makes you you. That's your gift, is being authentic. And so, I tell people, either be you and they'll adjust. That's really kind of how I've been in 2021, because, you can't change certain things as long as you're respectful about it, but you know what your agenda and your goal is, you got to deliver it and be you in your delivery.
Awesome.
Can I go for this one too?
Yes, please do.
So mine is a little different, because I wouldn't say I was directly discriminated against, but I saw my peers be discriminated against. So that can scare you as well. So growing up, I always wanted to be an athletic director. That's what I told myself. But as I got older and I started to actually look at the stats, it scared me. So I don't know how many people know this, but Black females only make up 2% of athletic directors in all of the NCAA, not just Division I, not just Division 2 or 3, the whole thing. It's like 2 or 3%. It's very small, y'all. So shout out to Jennifer for being in that percentage, but it's very small, guys. So when you see these type of numbers, it can easily scare you and make you think, okay, I'm not gonna get hired for this. They're only selecting a rare amount of Black women for this, and I know that. So now in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, I have to get these extreme credentials if I want someone to take me seriously. Because if I don't, they're just gonna surpass by me. 2% of Black women are athletic directors. I'm trying to become in that 2%. So that's just a prime example of how even representation does matter. The fact that I haven't seen anybody do these things that look like me, or the number is so small, can also scare away a lot of people who might want to be there someday.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. I can totally connect with you on that, just because the feeling of just trying to outwork your peers and working above and beyond just to earn the same respect as those around you and be taken seriously, that's a real feeling. And that happens so often. And I want to ask Candace too, do you ever feel that feeling, or have a story to share about your experiences of discrimination?
I guess I would kind of just say, don't have any specific stories that I can remember, like some of the other, some of the other panelists kind of have. So, maybe I'm just like an outlier. But if I just had to speak on the topic or the question, just my opinion. It's just that, like Black women are underrepresented when it comes to corporate America. When it comes to senior leadership, when it comes to compensation, we're at the bottom. In athletics, there should be more Black head coaches. There should be more Black assistant coaches. There should be more Black athletic trainers. There should be more Black strength coaches. There should be more Black representation. So, like I said, I might just be an outlier, but that's just my opinion on the question.
I just wanted to hop in and just say, I've experienced the discrimination more so when it pertained to gender and like age a lot, especially when we're traveling with the team, and maybe just I do get mistaken for being an athlete a lot, and that's fine. I'll keep that all day. But, just even being addressed by some of like my coworkers, even like, hey kid, and it's like, kid, I'm grown with a whole mother, I'm a whole, mother over here. But I don't see them address my male coworkers that way, and maybe it's just a comfort level or whatnot, but it's just like, still, I'm coach, just like their coach, and when my athletes see me being addressed that way, the respect level then continues to go down, so it's like that's something that even coworkers have to be aware of, and I've seen it get better for sure, but I had to like grow into that, like asserting myself. And I remember, Jennifer, you mentioned in our meet and greet, like how it took you to get into like your mid-30s to have that confidence,
See, you telling my age now, Stephanie. You over here telling my age now. You're not that far behind. No, I'm playing.
But no, seriously. And when you said that, like that it took, for you to be in your mid-30s. I mean, I'm getting into my mid-30s, but I'm starting to feel that comfort level of being assertive without being worried about she's the angry Black woman. Because I've even overheard, even during my time as a GA, oh, she's on a power trip. Why do I have to be on a power trip? Because I'm being assertive and telling you all, let's do this and do this right. Let's get on the line. It wouldn't be the same response if it was a man. And so it's just a lot I have seen. But again, I've gotten it from definitely coworkers, and then I've gotten it from strangers too, just approaching me, saying things. And you just have to, you overcome that, the way you do by obviously you growing into and being more confident and having exposure to women, obviously, that look like you and can help you through that. But I definitely have seen it, and but I'm here today. So I think also who has nurtured me, they say it takes a village to raise a child, but like adults as well, we need our own tribe, so that has also helped me navigate those issues.
Yeah, thank you, Steph. And if it's not blatant racism, a byproduct of discrimination are microaggressions. And those who don't know what microaggressions are, they're basically just our implicit bias, our unconscious racist actions, comments, touching someone's hair, commenting about someone's Blackness, ghetto-ness, whatever it may be, someone being ignorant about another person's race and offending them, even if they don't know that they are. How have you all experienced personally, or how have you all addressed microaggressions in the workplace or in sports or with anyone you've interacted with? And how do you handle these situations? And I think, Andrea, we could start with you.
Sure. So as far as microaggressions, I am I'm a very direct person, as I feel like is a common thing of all the panelists on here. But I have no problem telling somebody that I'm offended. Like I just shared the story about, my hair situation. That, however, was not a microaggression. That was blatant, like racist. So as far as microaggressions, I feel like they could be a little bit more awkward because the person, especially if it's somebody, if it's a coworker, if it's, a friend, and they say something like, "Oh, you're just so cool. You're such a thug." Like, what is being a thug? What is being cool? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, what are you really saying? Is that what you think about Black people? Like, do you think that all the cool people are thugs or gangsters, or that's what makes us like cool? Like, what are you saying? So when it's situations like that, and they don't mean harm by it, those are the times to be a teaching moment, in my opinion. Just say like, hey, I know what you're trying to say, but I'm letting you know, as your friend, as your coworker, or even if it's a stranger, like that's just not cool to say. Somebody, I think that, like I was sharing with the ladies a couple of weeks ago, I think some people just don't know. They literally just don't know. I went to school in Missouri. A lot of the kids I went to school with, that was their first time seeing Black people, like being in Missouri at the University of Missouri. And it's a case for a lot of people, especially like in Chicago. If somebody's moving from, Oklahoma or wherever, they might not have ever seen any Black people or interacted with Black people except for what they see on TV, which is a whole nother story about how the media and shows and they portray Black people. So I just think that you have to use it as a teaching moment and honestly just be honest with them. Let them know that it's not okay. Let them know another way they can. If you think I'm cool, just let me know I'm cool. Like that is okay, but you don't have to try to like, I think it gets confused with trying to be hip or trying to be, like think that this is a cultural thing. And it probably is, because they see Black people, even when it comes to Black people using the N-word with each other. And that's a whole topic in itself. So it's like, well, if they say it's each other, I don't mean it. I mean it like how your Black friend means it. And it's just like, yeah, but you still can't say that. So I would just say just being honest and addressing it right then and there.
And
Kayla,
India,
I was gonna say, oh, I was really gonna real quick because Kayla had brought up when we met a couple weeks ago about when people compliment her or say, you speak so well or you're so articulate. And I get that a lot. And I just actually did something for my alma mater and someone wrote in the comments, "Oh my gosh, you all are so articulate. Why wouldn't we be?" That's like, and so it's things like that where people need to think before they speak. I think a lot of times people just say whatever, and it's really kind of stepping back and be like, hey, is this offensive? And, I have thick skin, but it's still, I don't personally think that individual meant anything by it, but why wouldn't we be articulate? And myself and my other teammate, both African-American females, were the ones kind of leading the discussion. So would you have said that if it was another person, a Caucasian person or some different race? But it's things like that. And I got that a lot coming up. I went to private school and, oh, you speak like a white girl, would be common. And I know Kayla said she's dealt with things like that as well. I think we just have to be more conscious that, we're just educated. You speak educated. You're an educated female and you are using proper grammar. Why do we equate proper grammar with being white or with whiteness? So those are different things I've seen coming up in terms of just microaggressions. And I really thought that Kayla had some good stories and insight that she shared with us 2 weeks ago. And I don't mean to call you out, Kayla, but I thought that was a key point because I could see other student athletes or just administrators or anyone kind of dealing with that something as simple as that.
Thank you for sharing. I was just going to ask India specifically. I know you said you're on a predominantly white softball team, and I know just from experiences with being on a all-white swim team in high school, like I know you have some stories. Can you share some?
Yeah, I definitely got a lot of stories. I'll just start with the microaggressions. So I started playing softball when I was 11 years old. That's pretty young. Even the little white kids were still young too, so they didn't even know all the things they were saying was actually so rude. They had no idea. So it was just kind of like common questions like, "Oh, India, can you show us how to do this dance?" And I'm like, "How y'all know I know how to do dance? Like, I don't even think I know how to do it. So what makes you think I can do the dance?" But because I'm Black, they just assume she the best dancer. Ask her how to do the dance. But they never actually asked me like, "Can you dance?" Or whenever we would have to make up cheers in the dugout, they were always like, "All right, India can probably rap, so let her make up the cheers." And I'm just sitting there looking at everybody like, wait, what? Like, no, I cannot rap. I'm sorry. That's not one thing I can do. So those are just kind of microaggressions because that's like Andrea said, that's what they see on TV. They think everyone is a rapper. They think everybody's a dancer. They think every Black person is a basketball player. Like, this is what they assume. So they just started to ask me things like that. I even had some weird questions like, do I have two calf muscles, like on one leg? It was just crazy questions, guys, that you would not even know how to answer like as a young child. So I definitely say I was so young where I don't think I took it serious yet. I was still a child. So I was just like, whatever, like, what are you guys talking about? Y'all are being silly. But as I got older, I started to realize like, wait, like, it's actually not okay that they're asking me and telling me to do these things. Like, why are they not asking anyone else? Why is it just me? Why I'm already the sore thumb. Now they're making it worse. So it's definitely really hard, but I would say that it just got harder as I got older.
Yeah, thank you. I definitely have experienced code switching primarily before, or the effects of code switching, primarily before I came, and especially when I was being recruited by different coaches. You know, I had to call on the phone like most of us were. And every time, well, and not every time, many times I would answer the phone and they would be expecting a Black kid from Chicago who plays basketball and that she fits a certain stereotype and she's supposed to sound a certain way. And when they heard my voice and I sounded like what a white girl in their eyes, and they would tell me in their ears, and they would tell me that I sounded articulate, and they'd be like, "Oh my gosh, like you could speak so well," as if that were a compliment. And like Jennifer said, like why wouldn't I be articulate? You know, my little 10-year-old sister at the time could speak just as well as me, as anyone else. So just because of the way my voice sounded, I didn't like that. And I think I mentioned before that one of the reasons why I chose DePaul is because the coaches here, they never asked me or they never told me that I sounded articulate. And that was honestly like one of the determining factors of which institutions I went to. Because I was like, if we're going to start this relationship off with, you know, I don't know, you commenting about my voice, and then I just, you know, I didn't like that. And then it goes to other things. But there's definitely several parts to this question. But DePaul is a PWI, which stands for primarily white institution. And many times people of color use code switching as a survival tactic to fit in. And Jen, you said you were a student athlete on the basketball team at North Carolina. Have you ever felt the need to code switch in various settings or roles when it comes to addressing certain situations?
Kayla, so yes and no. So around my circle, I did not feel the need. You know, North Carolina is a PWI as well. And, you know, at the time I was there, all of the athletes pretty much were people of color, especially on your revenue generating sports, which is football, men's and women's basketball, and baseball at Carolina. And so, you know, I felt fine, you know, speaking how I spoke because those are my people. But, you know, when I went to class, it looked completely different. You know, I'm in class where it may be two people of color out of about 150 people. And so when presenting to my professors or, talking in our groups, you want to make sure that you're taken seriously. And I know we talked a lot about this, Kayla, on our pre-call, that you want to speak as proper as you can. And so while I would never do a presentation, saying, slang, you want to overemphasize. I felt like I overemphasized and articulated even more during times I was outside of my circle. But amongst my peers where I had my safe space, I never felt that they judged me either or, and we were all from different walks of life. I was born and raised in Detroit, and like Candace, my parents moved to the suburbs. I went to private school probably majority of my life. My teammates who were from the inner city, they never talked about how I sounded or if I was overly articulate. But again, I did, when I was in class, really make sure that I spoke extremely, I want to say not overly proper, but that I just was articulating, because I wanted to be taken serious, and I was not around a lot of people who looked like me, and wanted to make sure they understood what I was saying so that I could get those A's and graduate in a timely manner. So, it's just really, making sure your surroundings. And that was kind of how it was back in the early 2000s when I was a student athlete.
Thank you. Does anyone else, any of the panelists, have anything that they would like to add?
I'll go for the code switching. Code switching is definitely something I do all the time. When I was growing up, I lived a little while in Roseland, that's an all Black area. Then I moved to Madison, that's another all Black area. So all of my schools in high school were always all Black. So when I went to play softball, it was the complete opposite. I became the only Black one. So whenever I was with my softball team, they would legit tell me, like, you talk so ghetto, like you talk so hood, it's so cool. Like, I like the way you talk, like the way you talk is so cool. They thought it was so cool. But really what they were saying is that I was ghetto. That's really what they were saying. And then when I would go back to my school with the Black kids, they would say, you talk real proper. Like, where do you get that from? Why are you talking so proper? The reason was because I literally was changing my voice based on who I was talking to. When I was with my softball team, I completely changed the way I talk, simply off the fact of I was tired of them treating me like an outcast. Like, I got tired of them asking me, like, what are you saying? Why do you say it like that? Can you say polar bear? Like, they kept asking me to say things, and it was so annoying. So I got to a point where I just started talking the way they talked so that they would leave me alone, because I just wanted to play softball. I didn't want to talk about how I talk. So instead, I started to change it. And as I got older, I learned that this was called code switching, because when I went back to my family and they heard me talking to my teammates, they would go, why are you talking like that? You don't talk like that. So now I'm literally in the middle of two worlds. I'm like, okay, they're saying I'm ghetto. They're saying I talk too white. So how am I supposed to talk? I really didn't know. So eventually, you do just have to gain like your own self-confidence. I just started to think I was special. I can talk to all types of people. That's how I saw it. I can talk to young people. I can talk to educated people. I can talk to all types of people. So now I see it as a blessing. But I definitely would say I do feel like I had to change myself in order to fit in. I couldn't just be India, the ghetto Black girl, or else that's all it was going to be. They never were going to learn more about me just because of the way I was already talking.
I was just gonna jump in and say, I didn't really feel the pressure necessarily to code switch. And maybe because also I did go to schools that were, I guess, diverse, like DePaul. Even in high school, I went to Lane Tech High School, city of Chicago. And so, but it was more so when I went back home, like during our winter break. Everybody know about our long 6-week winter break, or even coming back from summer break. I would have friends on the block just like, hey, where you been at? And it's like, what do you mean? I've been in school. And they're like, oh, well, we thought you were gone. Like you had a baby or something. It's like, no, I went to school. Like, they did not see a lot of young African-American women going off to school, doing the things that I was doing, collegiate athlete, all of that. So that kind of made me feel like bad that I was even on the path I was on, not even just talking, but just even going to get an education, and really branching off and not, falling into some of the traps as well. So that was something that I had to struggle with too. I kind of just still talk the way I talk always. And that's something that even when I'm recruiting athletes myself, I don't care what you look like. I'm going to sound how I sound, okay? Because at the end of the day, not only are you choosing the university, but you're also choosing to be around me for the next 4 years of your life, So you have to be comfortable being around me, and I can only be authentic. I can't be Coach Stephanie Townsend that sound like this on this call with this recruit. And then when they commit to DePaul and come here, they're like, she don't even talk like that. I have to be genuine, okay? But yeah, that was the biggest thing that I noticed was just kind of the switch going back and forth between environments, and feeling like I had to explain myself that I wanted to even get educated, okay?
Okay, thank you.
You know what? I would like just comment and just say that so I mean I kind of asked my friends, I'm like, do you guys like think I like do this code switching thing? Do you guys think I do this? And they're like, I'm like, I really don't, I don't really think I really kind of do that. I'm like, maybe if I'm talking to a recruit's parent, yeah, maybe, and on the phone call or something, they're like, no, you definitely do it. You're definitely, and I'm like, what? I'm like, okay, well, like, give me examples. And we start going through this conversation and talking. And I'm just like, okay, well, basically it's like most, if not all Black people code switch. It's like, basically, it's like whatever term society kind of perceives as the Black culture, that's bad or not, not good or whatever. It's like we automatically just change, like our tone, our mannerisms, the acronyms we use, the analogies, the examples, everything that we use or we normally do in Black spaces that we assume that can't be used in like white spaces, then, that's like code switching. So I just, just to say that, but like, hopefully, as we just like, hopefully we move to like a space where we can, like code switch less. And I think like that'll happen when those spaces that we're in, the classrooms, the offices, the groups, the teams, when those spaces become more diverse and we as like Black people or Black women don't feel as pressured to code switch, I think that's when it'll happen less for us, but we're just not really there yet.
Definitely. And I think a big part of code switching happens in your friendships too. Something that people of color have to have partaken for far too long is code switching so that the non-people of color feel safe. And you have to conform to what is deemed acceptable. Like we said, a lot of times I am the token Black friend who my white friends have to ask their Black questions to, and I don't understand this, can you explain this? And a lot of times it's like, oh, I don't know why you don't get it. I don't know why I have to explain it to you. Can you look it up? Can you? So it puts a lot of pressure on us. I want to see how you guys deal with that pressure, how you dodge those Black related questions or answer them. Anyone in particular want to start?
I'll start. I don't really, like I said before, like I'm a very direct person. So I don't really dodge. I'm okay with being the person that if my white friends or coworkers, whoever needs to know something, if they don't get it, I would much rather them ask me and give me that chance to explain it to them. Now, if they ask me or if I tell them and they just blatantly like disregard it in the future, then it is exhausting. Like it's exhausting to have to constantly talk about why you're offending me. And it's just something that I think, all Black people, and it's not just exclusive to Black people, it's I'm sure every race and culture, gender, experiences certain like exhaustions when we wake up every day. They just look different. But speaking from a Black woman, it can get exhausting when we're talking about diversity all the time, or when it's really like it seems like a conversation like, okay, how do we treat Black people better? Or how do we not offend Black people today? And although like these conversations have to be had, it can come with a fatigue. So I think that I just really just accepted it. Like, look, this is just what you're gonna have. You were born into Black skin, and I, like many other people, have been the token Black girl, whether it was in my ballet classes, if it was at a summer camp or something like that. I remember as young as I had to be like 6 or 7, and I had a friend, my summer camp bestie. Her name was Molly. It was a white girl, blonde hair, and we were like stuck at the hip. And I remember me telling her one day, like, yeah, I'm going to come to your house, da da da. And she told me, like, you can't come to my house. My dad doesn't like Black people. And it's like, you don't even realize that kids like know, like this stuff is taught to them early. If you have a really hateful parent and they let their kids know, don't bring any Black friends home, like that kind of stuff happens and you don't even realize it. So I remember stuff like that, and it makes me want to be the Black person that can answer those questions for non-Black people, and deal with it that way.
Before we get to the first question for our Q&A, do any of the panelists want to also jump in on that question?
I just want to say something really quick. Andrea, you mentioned about kids learning these negative things very, very at a young age. And while I don't necessarily like see that, with my son right now, and he's played t-ball and he wants to play all sports right now, but I do try to get ahead of that when it comes to just like, he's saying daily affirmations, y'all. Like he's saying, just speaking life into himself, loving himself, saying he's blessed, he's handsome, he's smart, he's intelligent, all these different things. So I definitely try to get ahead of that because I know it's going to come, it's sad to say that. But as much as we have come so far, there's still so much work to do. But I'm trying to get ahead of the game with my own son. I'm raising a young Black man, but in my house, he's gonna make sure that he knows that he's the king. I just gotta say that.
Thank you, Steph, so much. Candace, do you have something?
Sure. I mean, I guess I'll just say, well, just, so I will say that I do get like the Black questions, I guess. And I honestly, I don't really have a problem like answering them. Or being asked them. Sometimes I would prefer like a coworker to ask me a question rather than kind of, not knowing, or to kind of go out and maybe ask, another random group of Black people or Black person the same question and it doesn't come off right, or they, it might become an embarrassing situation or something like that. So most of the time I don't mind like answering those questions. And also I will just say that I have like a ally and a coworker that also spoke up on like some calls recently and just said to the group, just that's not like to ask the one Black person on the staff or in your group or your team, like that's not the proper kind of way to like go about it. So it was kind of just nice to have like somebody just kind of speak up. And kind of just say that and actually just recognize that and that being like a white person that actually did that. But most of the time, like Andrea said, I don't mind like answering the questions or giving my opinion. I do most of the time have to preface them with, I don't speak for all Black people, but that is just something that I like to do. But just in conclusion, I did appreciate like that my one coworker speaking up and saying that.
Thank you so much for all the important contributions. And real quick, before we get to our first question that I have, I just want to give a round of applause to our moderators, Kayla and Belle. I think you did a phenomenal job, everyone. See your little boxes moving. So moving forward with our Q&A, the first question I got, and I'll kick it to Jennifer first, if that's okay, but what would an ideal inclusive environment feel like or look like for you? Think back to a time when you felt like you could be 100% yourself, and what aspects about that environment allowed you to bring all of your identities?
That's a great question. And I would like to say, as the athletic director and the leader of my department, I'm creating that. I'm blessed where I'm in a position where I'm able to create what I need in regards to diversity, equity, and inclusion. So when you, if you all happen to go to my website, you'll see that I have, a soccer team that is predominantly white or international. My golf team is international. I have coaches, we have a Sri Lankan coach, we have a Puerto Rican coach, we have my soccer coach is white. We have male coaches, we have female administrators. And I learned that a lot from watching some of my previous bosses. So Jeannie, so Thad, my boss at North Carolina A&T, who was a white man. A lot of people don't know there are white administrators or athletic directors at historically Black colleges. And so I've worked and put myself in diverse environments because that's what I want to be able to provide for my student athletes. I feel like we're better when we have other people who do not look like us and we can have real conversations. That's how you get better. So again, I am in a position where I'm blessed to be able to create that safe space. My coaches know that they can come to me and we can have real conversations. And that starts just with leadership and being in that position. I think, Stephanie, we talk a lot, representation definitely matters. And it's not just about having all Black staffs, or you have to have a diverse melting pot. And because that's what America is, that's what our society is. It's a melting pot. And I want to create that at my institution, in my department. Now, I can't say other departments outside of athletics look like mine because it doesn't. Again, I am in Montgomery, Alabama. And so, but when you come to the athletic department, you will see a very diverse staff, from females to race to everything. We have a melting pot. Hope that answered the question. That was a great question.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. Drea, I'm going to kick it to you. Just knowing your input with the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion group at DePaul, how would you kind of answer that question from our audience as it pertains to the diversity of that group and the subcommittees and the communication in that environment?
Well, I just think that my ideal diverse situation would be like Jen said, like just being able to be in a position where we can make those changes. I think our subcommittees are actively working on implementing like hiring and retention things that can be put in place to make sure that we do diversify our staff. I think that oftentimes, and I feel like we had this conversation before, but I think that when it comes to hiring or whether hiring or recruiting, sometimes people can just say like, well, there's not any Black girls that play tennis. There's not a lot of them. And I mean, it might be some truth to that, but at the same time, like there are plenty of Black girls who would love to learn to play tennis or would love to get an opportunity at a D1 university to play tennis. And I think that is just about us putting the effort behind it and making that conscious decision. Like it has to be conscious because things have been a certain way, not just here, but everywhere. Like in America, it's been predominantly white since the country was, established. So that's the norm. But for us to actually have like a real change and have our, institutions reflect what the population of the country looks like, we have to consciously do that. Like we can't just think that it's going to happen. Like we have to change things within the system. We have to change things like just our everyday lives. We have to just think about it more. And like I said, it can come with some fatigue. I know, like, even just as a Black person, like I said, we don't just get up every day and want to, you know, talk about I'm Black, I'm Black, I'm Black, I'm Black, and where we need to change this, we need to change that. That's not, you know, what we want to do. I would love to get up every morning and not have to actually think about being Black. But we do, it's a reality. And I have grown to really like grow into my skin and love being a Black woman. And I can't say that was always the case for me growing up. We talked about code switching. We talked about being the token Black girl. Sometimes I wanted my hair straight. I remember when I was little and I used to beg my mom, like, let me straighten my hair. Like, I'm tired of going to ballet class with these puff balls in my head, and none of the girls in my class hair looked like that. So yeah, I would just say just being conscious and making sure that we are making those changes to diversify our environment.
Thank you so much, Dre. Andy, I'm going to direct this next audience question at you, but the question is, do you think that athletic departments can fall into the trap of thinking a lot of these things don't happen here because they are a highly diverse population within the university?
Oh, wow, interesting. Honestly, I think people always think it doesn't happen around them. They just don't think it. No one is ever going to think they're a bad person. No one. So until they actually get around other people and they see what's happening, that's when it's kind of like an epiphany for them. Obviously, I love education, so I will say that I think a lot of this stuff does start from the school system. A lot of the things we do in school are strictly Americanized. Even a lot of my friends who are Nigerian, they're Jamaican, when they come to America, they change their names. And I tell them, do not change your name. Make people learn how to say your name. You do not change your name. You make people learn how to say your name. So that's just like the small little difference of like, instead of trying to change yourself and constantly become something that you're not, you have to start forcing people to learn your culture. It's hard. Prime example, I celebrate Kwanzaa. So growing up, people would look at me funny, like, what are you doing? Like, why are you doing Kwanzaa? And even a lot of my Black peers would look at me crazy, not knowing that this is a whole Black cultural holiday. But it's literally because in school, what do we celebrate? Christmas, Easter, all white Christian holidays. So we start to think that that is the world and that's the only world. So I don't really know what I can say how we can fix that because I'm not even in administration yet. But I will honestly just say, do whatever you can to spread your culture. Everyone just doesn't know, as someone said earlier, I was a lot of my friends' first Black friend, and I'm okay with that. Did I like getting asked questions all the time? No. But it is what it is. If you're the only Black friend, you're the only person that can help them. So I would say just spread your culture, have confidence in yourself, and don't be afraid to just be you. It's hard in school systems, but you can still do it.
Thank you so much, India. A common thing I'm hearing with your guys' answers is staying true to your identity and just letting the world know who you are, regardless of what environment you are in. So thank you guys all so much for being vulnerable in that space and for sharing that. But Steph, I'm going to kind of give that same question to you. So I'll read it over real quick. Do you think that athletic departments can fall into the trap of thinking a lot of these things don't happen here because they are a highly diverse population within the city? So as a coach, having a son, you know, working with peers, whatever your environment is at that moment, how do you think that question pertains to the growth of the university?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely think they can fall into the trap of thinking that it doesn't happen. Particularly like if we do have our committees and it's just like, oh, we're doing our part. But then it starts to become like we check the box off. We checked the box, we had this meeting, we did this and that, and then you get into like this stale routine of, okay, we did that, we had that conversation, but there's really no real action behind it. There's really no real change, no real policy put into place. So yeah, I definitely think that can happen. But when we're having events like this, and then we do have people of color, it's not just a white Black thing. That's also important to say. It's not just a white Black thing, but people of color in these decision-making positions, that's when we're going to see the change. But oh yeah, absolutely, it can happen. You know, even just being in Lincoln Park, this is a white, affluent neighborhood. I love Lincoln Park. I love being down close to the beach, all of that. But just the environment, my walk home may be different from somebody else's walk home or walk to my car, you know what I'm saying, that doesn't look like me. So absolutely, we got to make sure we get out of that comfort bubble that we're in, because DePaul is a very special place, but not a lot of places operate like DePaul, okay? And that being said, DePaul still has work, but we got to make sure it doesn't become that we hit a checkbox. We gotta make sure it doesn't become.
Thank you. And Jennifer, moving across environments. Oh, sorry. Moving across.
Can I chime in? Maggie,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Can I just chime in real quick? Because
Yeah,
Stephanie said some really great things, and so did India. So I want to say that hiring managers have to be intentional. They have to be intentional. You can't sit here and say, oh, I can't find a marketing director or someone of color, or a head coach of someone of color. It's because your circles aren't diversified. And that's where the problem starts. And, again, you have to be intentional with hiring. There are a lot of qualified people of color out there. And, like Stephanie said, not just Black or white, but people of color, because it's not just Black or white student athletes. We have a diverse gamut of people participating in athletics. And I really feel as if athletic departments should resemble what their student athlete population looks like as close as they can. And so being intentional about hiring is something that I've been challenging my peers, especially since the Black Lives Matter movement, because you saw, I'm on Twitter, and a lot of student athletes were calling out their athletic departments, were calling out, other people, coaches. I think even donors were being called out because they were refusing to give money because student athletes wanted to put patches on representing the Black Lives Matter movement. But that's where we have to be intentional as leaders on how and who we're hiring, because our student athletes are looking, and they're really looking now. And, student athletes are way more vocal than when I was a student athlete. And Stephanie, I'm gonna go with, they probably more vocal than when you were a student athlete as well. And they're quick to put something out. Twitter wasn't really out there like that. It may have just been developing when you were graduating, Stephanie, but Facebook was just coming on the scene when I graduated from college. So it's just with the reach that student athletes have now, it's just important to be intentional. And then this just can't be a moment. This has to continue to be a movement. Like Stephanie talked a lot about checking boxes and doing it just for, hey, I did it. I did my little DE&I initiative this year. It has to be ongoing training, so I hope, I'm going to be checking in with Stephanie that this is something you all continue because it's important. And so those are my other colleagues, that we continue this type of training and these conversations, because it cannot just be for this moment. In order for us to really get better, it has to be continuous. So I'm sorry, I just had to add that because I was writing my notes and Stephanie was speaking some good truths there.
Thank you. I was going to kick it to you anyways, so thank you for doing that for me. I don't want to call you out, Jarrell, but I saw you unmute for a second. Do you have a question, or does anyone in the audience have a question they want to unmute for before I go to the next one?
I accidentally unmuted on it. It was an accident.
I got eyes everywhere. Thought maybe there was a chance. Anybody else in the audience want to ask a question?
Maggie, this is Dwayne. I want to ask a question. So
go ahead.
First, I want to apologize that I'm not on video. I'm a little under the weather, but I didn't want to miss this. And I just want to congratulate each of you for even having this this forum, really, to speak your truth. And welcome back, Jennifer, to DePaul. As an Alabama boy and growing up with a lot of the issues that you ladies have mentioned, I want to ask a question. Like, what advice do you give to our young women that are people of color as they make those decisions in life? Because it's so much easier to take the other road versus, like India said, taking the 2%, 3% path. Because, right now what they're dealing with, life is so hard as it is. Even for, white males in this world we are right now. So if you're a woman, a person of color, you're kind of dealing with a double negative in today's world. So what advice do you give to our young women that are people of color to take that road, to do the thing that maybe is not as popular or the harder path, to be in positions like you enjoy today?
Dwayne, that's a great question. And thank you again so much for supporting this initiative. But in regards to the question, if I had to tell the student athletes, you have to take a risk and you have to be bold. That's kind of what's propelled me to this position. I was told so many times that I wouldn't be an athletic director, that I wouldn't be able to be successful in fundraising. And, I went out there and was able to prove the naysayers wrong. And I think that being a student athlete is half the battle, because we're battle tested as student athletes every day. I tell people I wouldn't be able to be an athletic director and lead during a pandemic if it wouldn't have been for my time at North Carolina as a student athlete. Being a student athlete prepares you to take on the world. And I really believe that wholeheartedly. So to me, that's half the battle right there. But being confident in the skin you're in. As Stephanie called me out, certain things I didn't learn until my mid-30s. And I think as you get older, you just stop caring what people think. So talk to some of your grandparents, because I know, grandparents and great grandparents kind of say whatever, but, be bold and dream big. I think that's your hashtag. I think that really, to me, sums up what it is to propel you to go out there and be a leader in whatever field you want to be in, because people are going to tell you no, they're going to question you. And it can be people that look like you and people who don't look like you, but you have to have a confidence and know and trust your abilities to keep going.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. Great question, Dwayne. Had another one come through the chat. So
Coach Blankson, I'm going to kick it to you, but anyone's really free range for this question.
To the last question.
Oh, sure, India, go ahead.
It's just one line I was going to say that I always tell a lot of people that I know as far as that question is, I always try to say, be the person you needed when you were younger. So think about when you were younger, just try to be that person. At some point we were young and we needed someone. We needed to look up to someone. So just be the person that you needed when you were younger. That's all I was really going to say, because I always saw just one Black lady who was an AD and I remembered her my whole life. It only took one person and I remembered her my whole life. So sometimes you just need to see that one person. Like, we're just now seeing our first Black vice president who's a woman. So a lot of girls are now starting to think that they can do this too. So sometimes you just got to be that person.
Goosebumps, India. Thank you for sharing that. This next question is, if a coach or someone who is in a position of authority uses a microaggression, what do you do about that? How do you handle that? This can be for any of the panelists, moderators as well. But I think this is speaking to, especially as a student athlete, I'm sure you're afraid of authority in the necessary repercussions of the hierarchy. So how do you kind of handle that?
I would just say that if any person or if any student athlete ever experienced a microaggression or is part of anything like that, to just speak up. That's just, you just have to speak up. And even though if you may not be, strong enough to speak up on the spot, then, take that person to the side and pull them to the side and speak up, or let them know whenever something is that someone says to you becomes problematic or, racist or whatever. But if it's bothering you, then you should speak up. You should. And if you can't pull that person to the side, then maybe, if it happens at practice or something, after practice, go up to that person or go up to that coach. And if you aren't, strong enough to go to them alone, then grab a teammate. Or if you need to take your whole team, whatever happens, you should speak up and let it be known, and just not hold those things inside and just keep them to yourself, because that person that does that doesn't know. They will never know. And then they'll just continue to do it until someone finally does speak up and just say, hey, that bothered me. That was problematic for me. And, I don't think it was right.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Drea, you talked earlier about the microaggression you faced with your boss or your coworker about your hair. Do you feel like if you didn't have as good of a relationship with that person as you did, how would you have handled that if maybe you didn't have that background with that person?
I probably would have handled it the same way. I would have said something. It just wouldn't have been the tone that I said it in. Like, it really felt like I was talking to my brother, like, what are you saying? Like, you can't say that to me. Like, and we probably, went back and forth, just our regular relationship. But if it was, a coworker or somebody who it wasn't so friendly with, I would have still said something. It would have just been, like I said, in a completely different tone. And, I probably would have made it more like, okay, if this happens again type thing, I'm going to go to HR, or I'm going to go to, somebody else above you to address the situation. But I can't even say, and it also depends on who it is. If I feel like they'll receive it, if it's somebody who was like super aggressive or super, just like, I can tell like this is them being racist and not just them not knowing, then I might choose to get like somebody else involved, like HR involved, because you have to document stuff like that. I don't want to just let it slide too much, because this person is over. This is my boss. So if I think that my boss is a racist, I can't just, as an employee, I don't think I could just sit by and like hope that they don't do that again. Just knowing that somebody like that has the power to hire people, it can be kind of like cringy. So, but I would definitely still address it.
Good for you. Okay, I've got another question. I know we're coming short on time, so we'll get this question and then we will wrap up. But what is your advice as we get into talking about allyship for individuals not African-American, people that are not of color? What is your advice or the hope that you see in them as they are sponsoring around the education of allyship, and how best they can support the initiatives moving forward? I guess Coach Townsend, I'll throw that to you.
Well, I would say, just being involved, obviously in events like this, organizations, things like this. But sometimes, again, like someone made a comment, you don't necessarily know what to say or how to approach, even get involved in DEI and things like that. But you have friends, it could literally just be checking in on someone, like, how are you feeling? Like, what other support, how can I support you? Sometimes it really just takes like listening at first before you even just jump in and try to really help. But I would definitely say the listening component is huge, because a lot of times people just don't listen. They just don't listen. And that's how we can really start to find a lot of common ground and a lot of solutions to some of these problems, and really go from there. But yeah, that's one of the first steps, I would say.
Thank you so much. I'm going to get to one more question. Oh, Jennifer, do you have something?
I was just going to say, I had listened, as Stephanie had mentioned, but then have an open mind and know that we don't expect anyone to have all the answers, but just be genuinely interested in wanting to get better and learn more.
Great. Thank you so much. I'm going to
have a comment, Maggie, just real quick.
Go ahead.
I mean, I would just like add to both of those, just something that's important is that, people might find hard to do, but like when it comes to like voting, just vote in ways that, are good for like Black and brown people, that are made not just be good for what's good for you and your family, or for like marginalized, some things that are like good and will help out like marginalized people. And then like everyone else, the other panelists just said, just, being open to listening, and not being defensive. And then just educating yourselves, whether that's, reading books or watching documentaries and having dialogue with your families at dinner, supporting Black businesses, you know, you buy your kids gifts, buy your kids books with Black characters in them, or watch cartoons with Black characters, and then encouraging your family and friends to kind of like do the same thing.
Thank you so much. I'm going to slip in one more question. I hope if anyone's got to go at 4:30, we obviously totally respect your time and space. I promise I'll close it up, but I would be doing the chat a disservice if I didn't ask this question for our panelists. So I'll open up to any panelist that wants to jump in, but the question is, what are some challenges with building relationships with your Black male coworkers? Do you feel like it's easier, or do you feel like you can relate, they can relate? Do you feel like it's harder for you guys to build those relationships?
Everyone's like so quiet.
Kick it to anyone.
I'm like, well, that is that's a really, really good question. I'm like, the wheels are turning. So I think it's, as Black females, we feel like because, you know, we have the same color skin, that, hey, that person's relatable. That person should understand where we're coming from. But I think that in my experience, I've had some trouble with, you know, Black men, and, you know, it's been a competition almost, where, you know, they support you until you start getting ahead of them. And I don't want women of color to think that just because someone looks like you, that they always have your best interest in heart. I think, or in mind, excuse me, I think you have to really look at that person's heart, or really get to know that person regardless of skin color, because some of my biggest champions have been white men. And that's a reality. So I don't think that we can just say because that person has our same skin color that they're gonna be just more apt to help us out, or to, you know, we would want that, or we would think that because we've all been through the same struggles, but that's sometimes not the case. And so judge people based on how they treat you and what's in their heart. But, you know, I've been in some great situations where I've had really awesome bosses, and I've made great connections with people, but that's just, you know, that is a luck. I know some other folks who have not had that. So I just don't want our young student athletes who are coming or graduating next year or in May, and they think that just because someone looks like you, they're gonna always be there or have that your best interest in mind. Just go with your gut and with your heart.
Thank you so much. Huge round of applause for our panelists, our moderators. Thank you guys so much. To all the young men on this call that I see, a huge shout out to you as well to continue to support. Huge shout out to all the student athletes, coaches, administrators that have attended this. The Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Group for Subcommittee for Training and Education is hoping to put on more events like this in the future. So please spread the word. Look out for those emails, but just want to thank the members of that subcommittee. So Jolie Daninger, Belle Ingram, Kayla Caudle, Adrienne Walker, Marie Zidek, Nate Jelinek, Jill Pizzotti, Coach Lato, Steph Townsend, Ben Gutman, and Brian Doobie, all such a big help in the promotion and the planning of this event. Special thanks to Coach Townsend for even getting this off of the ground. Just a huge thanks all the way around. We're so fortunate to be able to be doing this for everybody, for myself included. I'm so honored and touched that you guys all shared so much with me throughout this process and this planning. Thank you for being vulnerable and honest and strong. We're all better people for knowing you and for being here today. But just a huge shout out of gratitude. So thankful. So hope everyone has an amazing, yes, look at this chat, thanking everybody. Shout out to the queens. We love it. We love it. But if anybody has anything, you're free to say, but I just want to give a shout out and say thanks again to our amazing panelists.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. It was an honor to be back, and please keep in touch. I don't get to see you all every day, but please keep in touch. And I really enjoyed getting to know the panelists. Maggie, you were awesome. Kayla, Belle, good luck with your seasons this upcoming year. I'm going to be following you guys, and just thank you all.
And congratulations on your beautiful new son. Harper looks so thrilled to be a big sis.
Hey, Kate, thank you so much. Yes, I have a 6-week-old. So yeah, as well, we can have it all. We can have the careers and we can have the family. So don't forget that. But thank you all.
Right.
Thank you.
Good to see you. Thank you all.
Thanks, Jennifer. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Hey, Coach Bruno, thank you.
We'll wait for everybody to pop off. Guys, amazing. Adrian's in our subcommittee, so it doesn't matter. She can hear it.
Are we still recording?
Yes.
I'm going to turn the recording off right now.